Warm welcome to our panel, to one of our concluding panels for today, addressing Western Balkans, a very specific region, a unique region, and we're going to discuss Western Balkans' road to fiber, to full fiber connectivity. Why such a specific focus on this region? What's so special about this region? Well, historically, it's a very fragmented, very diverse region comprising 6 different economies with a very significant opportunity for fiber rollout, because in this region we still have over 3 million homes not yet covered by fiber. And this fragmented and very diverse market also represents a significant opportunity for further cooperation, for further collaboration within the region. And this regional cooperation has been driven by the common EU accession process, because 6 economies, they share the vision of joining European Union. It's been supported by European funding initiatives, such as the Western Balkans Investment Framework. And also there is the vision of progressive integration into common EU digital market. And so I invite you to take a closer look at this region today with our distinguished panelists present with us here. Alberto Belazelkovski, Chief Operating Officer of Neotel, North Macedonia. Balázs Reves, Chief Executive Officer of Vodafone Albania. Mark Vasic, the Head of International Regulatory Affairs with Deutsche Telekom Group, because as you may know, Deutsche Telekom Group has a significant presence in this region. Katarina. Hello, Katarina. Good to see you. You're with us. The Assistant Ministry for Electronic Communications and Postal Services with the Serbian Ministry of Information and Telecommunications. Katarina is joining us online. Pranvera Castrati, who is the Head of Program Department with the Regional Cooperation Council. For those of you who doesn't know, Regional Cooperation Council has a fundamental role in integrating, in creating the common market for those diverse 6 economies. And we have Kostas Masselos, the president of the Greek regulator. Kostas is the closest EU neighbor, bordering with many of those countries, so he will bring yet another dimension, being the neighboring EU member state. And so just before we start, I want to share a bit, some basic facts about the region. Maybe you could bring the slide? My introductory slide, if possible. Yes. So just a little bit for those of you who may be not familiar with the region, just to say, when we are discussing Western Balkans, that specific region comprised of 6 economies, we're talking about a regional market of 17 million people, around 17 million people. The GDP per capita of the region amounts to around 38% of the EU average. So it's a bit of a challenge in terms of purchasing power for the region. The rural population in the region by far exceeds the average European. So the region is characterized by very significant rural population, which is actually even growing. So we have over, depending on which country we are looking at, the rural population, the share of rural populations is ranging from around 30% in Montenegro to over 50% in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And yet another peculiar feature of this region is also the share of small and medium enterprises within the regional economies. It's by far higher in comparison with the European average. It's in the range of 60 to 80% of small and medium enterprises. I'm bringing this up because it also has an impact when it comes to adoption of digital technologies, adoption of fiber, adoption of fiber connectivity. So it's all relevant. And finally, I just wanted to share with you some historical data, because the latest comprehensive data which I could look at was OECD statistics, which looked at the region as a whole back in 2021. And at that point in time, the average coverage was fiber in the region was below 40%. So it considered one of the European laggards. in comparison with the EU average at the time, which was at 50%. But as you probably saw also from the market panorama figures that were released earlier these days by FTTH Council, you saw that the region is also home to the most dynamic, the fastest growing fiber markets in Europe, including Serbia, including North Macedonia, well, including Greece, of course, the neighboring country. And you could say, well, it's no wonder the region is growing so fast, starting from quite lower base, but we'll discuss more today. What's been the drivers for this region, and what opportunities and what challenges are presented for fiber deployment in this region. So, without further commenting on my side, I would like to give the floor to my distinguished panelists. And Alberto, over to you. From your perspective, maybe you could tell us about Neutel and your vision. And
Yes, thank you very much. Neutel, it's established 2004. Last year we have 20-year celebration. It's fiber from day one. We put our first backbone fiber towards Serbia operational in 2007, and it was at that time it was really achievement for Macedonia. And from then up to now, we building daily. We are spreading our network quite well-developed backbone network in the country, reaching all the neighboring countries with fiber, laying DWDM all over the network everywhere to push huge capacity and to...
Would you like to run your slides?
Yes.
I just remember.
Yes, okay. Up 4 or 5 years ago, we was mainly B2B and operator-oriented on the market segment, and 4 or 5 years ago, we start to going to residential market and start with the FTTH, what was, of course, something what was normal for us, because from day one we are working only with fiber and on fiber only. And in the meantime, because we serve a lot of business customers, we have quite good backbone and metro networks in the biggest city in Macedonia. And up to now, we have around 60,000 home passes, but it's really good amount for our operation.
About 20% of households.
Yes, roughly, but it's less. It's around 13% of households. But in the last 2 years, we switch a little bit our focus from dense urban area to rural area, because in dense urban area there is a lot of competition, and we will talk a little bit later about that in the discussion. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The other slides are for later.
For later. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Balázs, over to you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to take these opening remarks to introduce a little bit Vodafone and Vodafone's presence in the region, but then also to talk about Albania, which is the country that I'm representing, and the Albanian sector, just to place it in the audience's mind, how you can imagine it. So when it comes to Vodafone, Vodafone is actually having vast majority of its footprint in Europe and in Africa. We are serving more than 300 million customers in these two continents, and we are directly present in 18 countries and a lot of other partner markets and partner service providers we are serving. In the region of Western Balkans, we are present in Albania, very close to it in Greece, obviously, and if you look a little bit further down, actually we have a very, very large operation in Turkey as well. Now, in Albania, we are the market leader in mobile with around 55–56% market share, and we are also a co-market leader in the fixed broadband business with around 22%. But as you can see, there is a big difference in the mobile and in the fixed business, where being a market leader with 22% market share is already claiming how fragmented that market is.
One of the most fragmented markets in Europe, probably.
And let me just take it a little bit further on that, as you mentioned, Veronica. So now, when it comes to Albania, I'm really proud to represent Albania here today at this table. I am myself Hungarian, and I took over leading this business 2 years ago, and I really fell in love with not only the friendliness of the people, the beautiful nature, the fantastic Riviera that you have, but also the lots of growth potential that this region and this country specifically brings as well. It's really a bustling, booming country with real estate, with tourism, more than 10 million tourists last year, and lots of growth opportunities in various sectors, including ICT and digitalization. And actually, I'm so proud that what we are discussing today here is exactly one of the key enablers for this growth. The digital infrastructure is critical. And I really believe that for Albania, which is a country with the prospect of becoming a member of the EU, hopefully by 2030, and it's being on track for this, as such an EU candidate country, I really believe that the single biggest growth driver and the factor whether we will be able to win out of this and take all the opportunities that the EU brings is how strongly we can leverage digitalization. That's, for me, the single biggest opportunity. And it's, you know, obviously we are always saying we need highways, we need roads, we need railways, we need everything, but I really believe that we need equally, or even more, a great digital infrastructure.
We need digital highways.
We need digital highways. We need digital highways, and that's what we are talking about today. So this is, for me, the single biggest enabler of the opportunities for Albania and for the Western Balkans as a region. Now, how far are we from this vision of having best-in-class fiber connectivity for everybody in Albania? Now, in fact, today in Albania, we have got more than 90% of fiber coverage across the country. So you can ask the question, what more to do? Yeah, okay, there are still a couple of percentages. We want to cover it, but what else to do here? But actually, you have in every single household on average, minimum of 4 providers to choose from. And if you go to Tirana in the capital, you will typically see more than 10 switch boxes of providers at
on a single
average.
Building.
It's like a hedgehog, you can imagine, right? All the fiber coming in. Actually, a lot of the fiber going straight to the windows of the apartments, not even properly built. So it's a zoo. It's unfortunately a very, very overheated, very not necessarily well-built fiber market. And that is the single biggest challenge. As a result of this, you have today the lowest download speeds of fiber and in generally fixed in Albania compared to whole Europe. So to me, this is the best-in-class example of pure competition versus competition of investment, which we have heard so much in the past couple of months, and I'm sure in the past 3 days as well. So it's the perfect example of pure competition versus competition of investment. The lowest download speeds. This is not an infrastructure that can take us and our businesses in Albania to the EU. This is not what will make us competitive, and neither will serve with Copilot and Gen AI our children in their education system, right? So I really believe that there needs to be a change here, and we need to start gradually or rapidly changing our focus on competition of investment. And I'm very glad to bring a couple of examples throughout the discussion on how we believe it can be done, what should be the key focus areas for that. And if we do that, I'm convinced that Albania can actually be turned in the next 5 years into top 5 or top 10 digital infrastructure of the whole Europe. Because we have all the basic ingredients, we just need to foster this environment of competition, of investment. So that would be my vision for Albania, to turn it into the top 5 to top 10 digital infrastructure, equally mobile, where we are very close today, as well as fixed. I'm very glad to continue this conversation then as part of the panel.
Thank you, thank you. Mark, what is your view?
May I have the clicker?
The key, yes, please.
So, we heard a lot about Macedonia, we heard a bit about Albania, so therefore now you can ask why the heck there is someone from Deutsche Telekom, and are they really in the region? And here we go. Let's talk a little bit about how to bring fiber to the Balkans. I saw some familiar faces, and perhaps, guys, you should consider to come a bit closer, because, also for us as a panelist, it's bad to see that we have 100 meters to our customers. So come closer, and then you will have the real enjoyment on that. So Deutsche Telekom is everywhere. I think I can be very proud to represent this company, because we are the largest telco operator, the telco company from the Western world. There are some on other parts of the world, so it's a little bit bigger, but here we go. So our main business is in the US as well as in Europe. And in Europe, that's really something very amazing. If you see, I try not to bother you with all of our countries on the map. I just try to focus a little bit on Southeastern Europe and on the Balkans, because Deutsche Telekom is present in more than 60 countries all over the world, 60, and our main point is in Europe. We have 2 axes, one from Poland down to Austria, and then the other axis is from Croatia to Greece. And then, per definition, it's every time hard how to construct this area of Southeastern Europe, the Balkans or the Western Balkans. I try to focus only on some selective countries. You see, okay, Deutsche Telekom seems to be in town. We are in the most of the Western Balkan countries active, and we are investing as hell in this infrastructure, in the digital infrastructure, because our claim is we will stop until everyone is connected, which means for us that we are investing every year in this region, only in this region, in more than 1 million access points to fiber. So means every year we are bringing 1 million customer on the fiber, and that is a huge invest. So we are investing around 2 billion in Southeastern Europe. So in this region, it's a little bit less than 1 billion euro we are investing in fiber, as well as in 5G, because from our perspective, all these technologies should be linked, because, our customers doesn't care whether it's fiber or it's 5G. So the main point is I would like to stay connected. I would like to have my video call with my kids or my grandkids in diaspora or somewhere else, or I would like to make my business out from my hometown somewhere in the region. So that's it, and we are investing. We are trying then also to think a little bit about, when you're coming from a bigger view, how we can build a little bit more efficiencies. And I would like, between friends, we are somehow related to this region, or we are interested. I can tell you, between friends. At a certain moment, a couple of years ago, we decided in Deutsche Telekom Group how we can create efficiency. We know we can reach the customer only if we are very close to the customer. So that means our access point to the customer, the fiber connectivity, should be on the ground. But there is a lot in behind which we can also deal on a more central level. You have all these smaller countries with smaller market, with one exception. Greece is a very huge market, but has also its difficulties and challenges for building us fibers. And dear Kostas Marcellos, please don't get me wrong. Somehow I'm not counting Greece to Western Balkans. You're not part of the Western Balkans, so therefore,
we focus on 6 Western Balkan economies.
Let's only focus on the Western Balkans.
Kostas is a good neighbor.
is a very excellent neighbor, and we are also very proud. You see, with Ote in Greece, and we faced one problem, and those guys would not like to hear that. You know, we have a very, very fragmented market. Means also on the regulatory side. You know, if you want to build up fiber infrastructure in Albania, it's a completely different challenge as to build it up in Montenegro or in Macedonia. All the rules, all the regulations are very different. And then also, you know, the market structures are not very hard. And then also these regulators, you know, and sorry for blaming again the regulators, they also insist to, you know, we should have, you know, particular and very specific rules in our country. And after this experience, you know, we started a discussion with Pranvera from RCC, with Katarina and her predecessors in the government of Serbia and other countries, and all of the other countries all the governments in all of the region, and say, guys, we have to talk. When we are talking about digitization, we have to talk about the regional level. Bring it together. Let's try to, you know, bring something on the paper. And we ask also a lot of other companies, like also Vodafone. We started joint activities, bringing discussion about digitization, what benefits digitization brings to the Western Balkans, also on the stage. And we discussed it. And then we had an idea with RCC to come up with a regional digital summit. And that was an amazing experience. I don't know, shortly, because I'm running out of time, I have only 90 seconds still. Give me, who attended the last Western Balkan Digital Summit? 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. Next time will be in September in Skopje. It will be an amazing event, and that was a very good thing. Because we started in Skopje 2018, we made the rounds through the Western Balkans, and now we are restarting it again in Skopje for the next round, and it will be an amazing event. Perhaps if we are, you know, very kind, Pranvera will give us more details about that. Perhaps, hopefully. But after this experience we had, let me give you some recommendations I would like to discuss with you. The first point, please do me a favor, dear government guys, harmonize the legal framework conditions. If you're investing in the company like hell, like Deutsche Telekom, you need predictable framework conditions, and we need something which is harmonized. Ideally, also harmonized with the European rules, which is on the way. The second point
I would want you to expand on that in our discussion. It's a good point.
Good. So then legalize it. And we are in Amsterdam, I do not want to talk about legalization of something. Let's talk about the legalization of the legacy infrastructure. You know, if you bought, like Deutsche Telekom, infrastructure from former Yugoslavian post and telecom services, and other countries, you have to think about who owns the infrastructure. If you want to modernize your infrastructure, if you want to bring up fiber to the people, why the heck you can't have the pure property rights for the infrastructure, even when you bought it? You know, one similar example, in Croatia, we found out, it's not Western Balkan, it's very close, it's the same problem, we found out that a lot of the lines are not registered. Former Yugoslavian post, they put their fiber somewhere directly to the customer, doesn't care to put it on the map or not, but now you have the problem how to justify that you are the owner, and how you build up if you cannot justify that you're owner things. Think about deregulation. In Croatia, the regulator took a very brave move. They partially deregulated the market.
Yes. Regional deregulation in more competitive areas.
It brought huge demand of it, increased a lot the investment. Have the dialogue, I already mentioned, we have the summit, enabling that all the operators can do something about cross-border. That's really excellent, very extremely relevant. And please do me a favor, dear policymakers, think about also that we can use public funds for two ways.
Yes, we'll bring this up.
One point, example from Greece, Kostas will tell us a bit more. That's the best example, voucher, to push the demand side. And the other point is in Serbia. Look at Serbia. Katarina will tell us how they used EU funds for bringing infrastructure to the people everywhere.
Thank you so much, Mark. You made a perfect introduction to our next speaker, to Katarina, joining us online. And what's so interesting about Serbia? Well, first of all, it's been one of the fastest, in fact, by far the fastest growing fiber market among the countries that have been monitored by the FTTH Council. And currently, the average coverage of Serbia with fiber amounts to 78%, which is above European average. And it's all happened within a matter of last couple of years. And largely thanks to very successful state-funded, public-funded initiatives that have been run by Katarina's ministry. So I would be very happy to hear more. And Katarina, over to you. Maybe you could share more with us about the situation in Serbian fiber market.
Hello, Veronica. Hello, everyone from Vera. Nice to see some familiar faces, distinguished panelists, dear participants. I'm very glad to be the part of this panel. And I'm very sorry that I'm not with you physically, but I hope that I will be able to share our activities, especially about rural broadband and etc., and to share with you our results we achieved in the previous period. First, I will give you a short presentation. Just a moment. Okay. Here we are. I will give you a brief overview of the most important activities in our ministry, in Ministry of Information and Telecommunication, and after that I will focus on the rural broadband and EU funds, etc., as my previous panelists already mentioned. Almost 2 years ago, we adopted a new law on electronic communications, and this law is completely in line with the European Electronic Communication Code. And further on, the government regulator in the field of electronic communications and the ministry adopted more than 40 rulebooks, bylaws, including 5G security toolbox, while 7 more are in the process of adoption in order to complete our regulatory framework to ensure its implementation. And as it mentioned, it's very important to have harmonized and predictable framework. Additionally, in 2024, the strategy for the development of electronic communication system was adopted, and it is valid for 3 years from that period. When we talk about law on broadband infrastructure, through which we plan to transpose Gigabit Infrastructure Act, it is also very important. We just formed the working group. It is actually inter-ministerial working group, and also non-governmental sector is included in that group. And we plan to draft the proposal to the government by the June of this year and plan to adopt by the parliament by the end of this year. We are in the final stage of adopting rule book about minimum conditions for 5G. To be honest, we were a bit delayed to changes in our market. Actually, we have some acquisition process on our market, so we will probably have 3 interested telecom operators for 5G instead of originally and planned for. And in parallel with this regulatory activities, we are also working on the faster and easier deployment of very high capacity networks and infrastructure development in rural areas to ensure the secure, universal and meaningful connectivity. And now I will tell you more about the rural broadband project, which aim is to reduce the digital divide, improve digital skills in rural areas, and of course develop very high capacity network in the rural areas. You can see some data on this slide, and I will explain from the beginning, before the project started. Actually, before the implementation of this project, Ministry analyzed current state of broadband internet availability and also needs for the intervention to build broadband communication infrastructure, especially in the white and gray zone in rural areas. And also, we cooperated with operators and developed a study that proposed various incentive models for the construction of fixed broadband infrastructure, depending on different geographical, demographic, socioeconomic specifics of certain parts of territory of the Republic of Serbia. And working on that analysis in 2019, we realized that actually there are over 500,000 households in rural areas of Serbia where there is no economic interest for operators to develop infrastructure based on the next generation access. It is actually this number when you combine these three rows. So as you can see on the slide, the first row, the red one marked in red, shows settlements and households where there is no NGA network at all. Then marked in orange row shows that less than 40% of households have possibility to access to the internet with more than 30 megabit per second. And the gray one shows that these possibilities have between 40 and 60 households. Of course, the last one, the green and the blue areas, they represent the best fixed access availability. So in 2020, the project for the joint construction of broadband communication infrastructure in rural areas was launched. And this is, of course, project of strategic importance for us, for the whole Serbia, for our ministry, and it is financed through the EBRD loan and VBF grants. What is planned with this project? It is planned that the ministry will build the middle part of the infrastructure from the operator points of present to the schools in the targeted rural settlements, and will provide it to operators for management, maintenance and use for a period of 25 years. At the same time, operator will build access network, actually called it, last mile infrastructure, with obligation to cover over 95% of households in their targeted settlement with internet access service with a speed of no less than 100 megabit per second. And also, operator should, with this agreement, provide the free internet access with a speed also no less than 100 megabit per second for the schools in their targeted settlements for a period of 25 years. So, in line with the previous slide, on this slide you can see our territory, which categorized settlements according to coverage in 2020, and the situation was not so good. You can see how many settlements require intervention. All these red one, orange. You can also see that there are not many settlements marked in blue, which represent settlements with availability very fast internet. So on this slide, you can see how implementation is going. It is only for 1 year, from 2020 to 2021. And you can see much more blue color here and a little bit less red and orange color on the display. And on this slide, you can see the entire process from 2020. This slide in the middle is 2024. We are now a little bit better than on this slide. And of course, the final one is our desired goals for 2026. We will see, is it possible? But of course, we're trying to achieve that goals. What means the project and what we plan to do? Project has 2 phases, 1 and 2. And with phase 1, it plans to cover 395 settlements with approximately 65,000 households, as well as around 400 schools in more than 80 municipalities. The total length of the optical network is approximately 1,615 kilometers. The construction work is planned to be completely by mid-2025. It is actually very close, but at this point we are on the 90% of this realization. For example, now we have 345 settlements, and the contracted value of this project, of the work, amounts to 37.4 million euros. But when it comes to the phase 2, the project involves much more settlements, much more households, and also their households are much more dispersed. 140 schools, 3,920 kilometers, and in phase 2, the pre-qualification process has been successfully completed, and the selection of contractors is in the final stage. Tomorrow we'll probably have a signed memorandum and the contract. The completion of all activities within phase 2 of the project is planned for the last quarter 2026. We will see it will be finished until then. I hope it will, but we will be happy also if it will be finished in the early in the beginning on 2027. And the estimated value of the project in phase 2 is around 103.5 million euros. So it is very important, very significant amount of money for us and a very, very important help. And I would like to underline something about interest of telecommunications operators. We are striving to include all operators, of course, but the fact is that the largest operator is the most interested in covering the last mile.
Telekom Serbia, right? The incumbent operator.
Yes, Telekom Serbia. And Telekom Serbia covered approximately 95% of whole settlements. And we also involved Orion, A1, A1, SBB, SatTrack, but they're less interested than Telekom Serbia, of course, unfortunately. And it is also a big challenge to involve all of them much more. And the rest key challenges here, I would like to underline also that we have a lot of technical problems with the legislation framework with the different ministries. So we need to communicate with them on a daily basis, especially with the Ministry of Ecology and Ministry of Construction. And we prepare some instruction for their employees on the local level. And also we're trying to achieve targets together, to explain them what it means for all of us. Of course, we expect a lot from the low broadband infrastructure, and it helps us a lot in the future. And at the same time, we are trying to raise awareness among rural citizens about the citizens in the rural area, about the important it's for them to have internet access and stay connected. We explain them that internet provides equal opportunities, makes everyday life easier for citizens, especially when they're using government electronic services. Of course, for business, it's also very important to have some more efficiently possibilities. And it will be all from me, what I planned to say and to share with you. I hope it was interesting after my previous speaker and stand-up presentation. This online presentation is maybe not so interesting, but I share everything I have with you, and thank you for your time and for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Katarina. You touched upon quite a few topics we'll discuss further on throughout this panel, including the barriers and how to handle those barriers in the context of deployment. And another interesting aspect that you also brought, that the broadband coverage, the fiber coverage, this rural infrastructure project was coupled also with a very clever government strategies to promote digital services, digital government services, which also very important for stimulating the take-up of the infrastructure. Because you could bring fiber, but if there are no credible services, no credible digital services, then the infrastructure is not so useful. Pranvera, over to you. Regional Cooperation Council, what's your role in consolidating, in creating the single market, the single digital market within this region?
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the invitation. And I'm very pleased to be here today in such a distinguished panel and panelists. Of course, I don't represent here a country. I don't represent here a company. But I'm so proud to represent a regional organization. Regional Cooperation Council is established from 2008 and is an intergovernmental organization that facilitates the cooperation and development in the Southeast Europe. Is an all-inclusive and regionally owned framework for cooperation that promotes growth, sustainability, and also equitable results and benefits for the citizens of the Southeast Europe. Of course, we do this while we follow the principles of all-inclusiveness, impartiality, proportionality, and benefits for everyone. Also following the principles of no one is left behind and everyone has a role to play in what we do. While we do that, we try to synergize all the policies. There is no one crown in any of the Western Balkan 6 regarding the policy agendas. And even though digitalization seems to be the most important one and the most spoken one, I think that we live in a world and we live in societies in which everything is interconnected. And this is why whatever we do, we try to connect one with the other. We try to see digitalization connected with innovation. We try to see it connected with green. We try to see it connected as much as possible with the business enabling environment, competitiveness, and competitive market. Let's not forget that the Western Balkans so the region as such is not a big region. So we are, you said 17 officially.
17, yeah.
Officially, we say 18 million citizens in the Western Balkans, very fragmented market, small economies. And the only way we have to prosper is to cooperate. And this is what the citizens of the Western Balkans say. 82% of them believe that regional cooperation is the way forward. And that is the highest ever level of their perception under the Balkan Barometer, a survey that we do annually. Last year, it peaked at 82%. And this is also, it has also to do with the integration to the EU. It has to do with the need for us to prosper among us. But how we do what we do in the Regional Cooperation Council? First, we do that through establishment of functional frameworks for cooperation. And we see this from different angles. First, we see it from G to G, meaning bringing the Western Balkan 6 public institutions, regulators, and all other, let's say, bureaucrats, I would say, but there are specialists across the region, discussing among themselves and trying to learn what is best across them. And of course, there is no bad intentions. There are only good intentions and ambition across the region in learning what is going well in each of the Western Balkan 6. Second, we see G to B as crucial for the dialogue. And Mark already mentioned that. We started to think of this G to B early 2017, when the multi-annual action plan for regional economic area was established, and where for the first time public institutions and, at that time, telecom operators and vendors together discussed and established the Digital Summit, a flagship event that brings together from all angles and all stakeholders what are the challenges, what are the benefits, what we could do better for the digitalization front. And of course, bringing the discussion at the highest level, at the Prime Minister, through specific deliverables. Let's just mention some of them. The roaming agreement signed in Belgrade, Memorandum of Understanding for 5G transformation signed in Tirana, also the Memorandum of Understanding for Interoperability signed in Tirana during the Digital Summit, and so many B2B discussions as part of the summit, which brings novelties to the discussion. And third, a broader dialogue, bringing jointly with private sector and the government, also European Commission, BEREC, and other institutions that deal in particular with the digital connectivity at large. Second, we do that through very structured policy dialogue. So we choose very targeted area, like roaming, and I think that is, okay, Mark, I have to say it. This is the star reform of the region, and it's we take so much pride in saying it.
For a very good reason. For very good
reasons. And I hope that our colleagues from EU member states would not be mad at us, but something that took 10 years in EU to establish, it took only 2 years in the Western Balkans, roam like at home. Of course, this is not only our work. Kudos to the telecom operators who could manage to do that swiftly and smartly. Grateful to the governments who managed on time to bring all the interests together. And of course, citizens are getting the benefits. But we went a step further. We did not stop at this targeted roaming only intra-Western Balkans. So we went to EU Western Balkans. I'll not reveal any figure yet because the report of the EU Western Balkan roaming declaration is at the final stage of validation. But I can just tell you that are remarkable results. An example that I like always to say...
I think this is a great one with your mobile bill.
I like to say, with the SIM card I have, and I'm not mentioning which one because this is not a matter of promotion to any operator, before 1st of October 23, I would pay 10,000 euros while in Brussels for official meetings. Today I pay only 17. And again, this is thanks to this collaborative approach between the governments, the operators, and of course, understanding what is best for the citizens. I think that the bottom line of all this is people-centric. And if you can make sure that the citizens are at the core of all decisions, then of course you achieve results. And the last point I want to make is that in addition to this targeted policy agendas, we go broader with cross-cutting and cross-sectorial policies, as I said, bringing together innovation and digital and green private sector all in once through the common regional market. But I think that I might explain further on that.
I think so.
Because that is one of the core regional frameworks now that brings the region closer to EU. It also anchored to the growth plan for the Western Balkans, and these two pillars that we usually try to explain. Pillar 1, which is phasing into the EU single market, and Pillar 2 is common regional market, which brings the region together, would make the difference and will close the convergence with you. But I might follow later.
Thank you. Thank you. I know you're doing a lot and bringing EU practices and EU rules closer into the region and addressing some of the challenges, which I'm sure our panelists will also bring up as we discuss. Kostas, over to you. You're the closest EU neighbor to that region. You share some common histories, some, well, many factors.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me as a speaker in this very interesting panel, a follow-up of the discussion we had in Dubrovnik in October, more or less. And I think we still share a lot of things with neighboring countries, the 6 Western Balkan countries. Well, for sure, fiber networks are the key tool for the twin digital transformation and green objectives we have defined, and for sure the technology to bring us to gigabit connectivity objective. That's for sure. We all know the advantages of fiber networks, not only speed and performance, but also low latency, better cost per speed ratio, scalability, reliability as well, which is very relevant these days, and a very clear roadmap, technology roadmap for the future, 25, even 50 gigabits per second, plus the energy efficiency compared to legacy networks. So it's very clear. Now, what can we do to speed up not only the deployment, but also the adoption of FTTH? I think we have several high-level challenges. We need to create investment-friendly environment. Of course, the deployment of fiber is capital-intensive, that's for sure. And when saying investment-friendly environment, we need policy and regulation to allow reduction of engineering costs for the deployment of fiber networks, like civil engineering costs, how to share passive infrastructure, like ducts, all this framework. Simplification is key in the regulatory framework, how to optimize administrative procedures, how to reduce overheads to the minimum. So simplification is another point of the regulatory environment for investments. Also promoting innovative solutions. We want innovation to address challenges. On the other hand, we need to address also the demand side. It's not only building fiber networks. We want subscribers to adopt these services.
To make sure they benefit from this deployment.
Otherwise, it makes no sense. I mean, we need the networks to be accessible, and this means competitively priced, of course, because we face some challenges. The economic environment is quite challenging. We have inflation issues, we have several issues. So we need also policies to address demand. And if we see today, I mean, using data from Market Panorama, we see that we do quite good on the supply side, but we still have some challenges on the demand side, the penetration of FTTH. A very nice example of policies to address the demand side, Mark already mentioned for Greece, it's the gigabit voucher scheme. So this is a voucher subsidies to incentivize subscribers to migrate to fiber by subsidizing one-off costs plus monthly fees for a period of 2 years. And this one started in 2018 in Greece. This one was a milestone, I think, for Greece to increase the deployment of FTTH and the take-up of the service. But we still have, if we see in more details, there are still challenges for FTTH deployment and take-up of FTTH services. One key issue is how to address the challenge of transforming homes passed to homes connected, so to activate the user. There are challenges like civil engineering costs again. In Greece, at some point, we faced challenges of availability of technical personnel. And we have also to face something that I would never expected in the beginning, the reluctance of the subscribers themselves. Not only for pricing, because I see that in many countries, price for FTTH services is not the #1 issue. It's the reluctance of the subscribers to allow interventions in their space.
To connect. So the operators bring fiber to the building, but then within the building it becomes an issue because people wouldn't want.
This is something that in the beginning I didn't expect to happen, but I see it's a maybe #1 issue today. So we have these challenges. At the same time, we have the legacy networks, and copper switch-off issue is very important because we have a legacy network competing.
This is actually one aspect where Greece is different from neighboring countries, because historically your neighbors, they didn't have extensive copper infrastructure, and this is why many of them are moving straight to fiber. Unlike in your case, where the incumbent historically relied on extensive copper infrastructure.
It was, and it is still there, the main network infrastructure in Greece. But maybe I can elaborate in the next part of the panel. So there are still challenges to address, and we need innovative thinking and solutions to overcome these challenges. We had 2 days ago interesting discussions in the workshops about promoting fiber to the building first as an intermediate step towards fiber to the home to allow faster, lower cost migration of subscribers to the fiber network. So we need to be innovative.
Thank you, Kostas. On that point, on your last point you brought up, I would like to address that very question to other panelists. How do you see the key challenges and drivers for FTTH adoption in your countries?
In Macedonia, we have quite well numbers. If we take in consideration that there is no government subsidy, there is no EU funds for developing.
There is Western Balkan investment framework, but it was not applied in your country.
Still, we didn't get any money, as I know. I think so that also Makedonski Telekom, like part of Deutsche Group, doesn't take anything from that possibility. But we have more than 60% coverage. We was discussing before in the
yes, we started
urban
over
area.
Lunchtime. We've been discussing this with Alberto. He just got the latest number from different players in North Macedonia, and then when he added up all those numbers, it turned out that it's over 100% coverage.
Yes, but it's similar like in Albania. You go in the building and you have 3, 4, 5 networks, fiber networks inside, and that is wasting of money.
So in some parts of the country you have parallel networks, maybe 4 or 5 or more, and in some parts of the country there is nothing.
Yes, and in the rural area there is nothing. There is no strategy how to build the network, and there is no even try to make some initiative in order operators to start cooperating between them. Not only where to build, but to start share some networks. I think it will come in the next year, because slowly, that it's my opinion, everybody is running out of enough money for investment. especially because the rural area it's more money intensive per subscriber, because you need also to spread a little bit backbone. Also the access network, it's more costly to build because you build for less customers. I think that in that area we need to find a way how to cooperate a little bit better between us in order to achieve better numbers for coverage. And take-ups, it's around overall take-up, it's around the actual numbers, the numbers what are public are around 37%, but it's more or less on the line with the similar countries.
Mm-hmm.
And what it's also very important to emphasize here that Macedonia have a perfect 5G coverage. This is not for this panel, but I want to mention because the both mobile network operator, Makedonski Telekom and E1, they have more than 97% coverage of population and around 92% of territory with 5G network. It's really big
quite
achievement.
A significant achievement.
Yes.
Thank you. Balázs, how would you see the situation in Albania in terms of the key challenges?
I think we talked a lot about market structure, so let me cover that very
extremely
quickly
fragmented
first,
market structure.
but then also the supply and the demand side very quickly. So I think first and foremost, to make sure that there is fiber investment and then adoption, you need a market structure that is fostering competition of investment. That in this very specific case, but in many countries actually in the region, not only in Albania, it's all about reinforcing the same standards of excellence for every operator equally. Because unfortunately you see often a different level of standards, which eventually leaves the customer with suboptimal choices. So it's not, I'm not talking against competition, I'm talking for competition of investment, for which you need to set,
not on price alone, but on quality,
which is exactly,
on the aspect that
which
Kostas
requires
brought about
the right
high speed,
expectations on
low
network
latency.
build standards. You know, how do you bring that connectivity to the customer underground with the right ownership, with the right permissions, with the right way of build? Expectations on not using pirated TV content, expectations on cybersecurity, on health and safety. Unfortunately, it is an expensive business to build fiber the right way, but that's the only way for the future. And I think that these standards need to be equally reinforced to everybody. There needs to be a minimum standard, not only regulated, but also reinforced. And that will secure the right digital infrastructure that is sustainable for the future as well. Now, that creates a market structure where those who can and want to build and invest for such infrastructure will want to appear even in the countryside, even in the rural areas. Today, as Vodafone, although I am building this way, I don't find the right economics to go into the countryside to build this way because I see, unfortunately, competition below 10 euros, which is short-term, might help for temporarily good connectivity for the customer, but long-term, it's not giving the quality that the customer, a business, to compete versus European competition needs, right? So you need to increase the standards of excellence. That's the first step. Any subsidies, any rural investment projects will only return money in case the standards are increased so that you have fair, leveled playing field. So that's about the market structure. When it comes to the supply side, I agree with your slides a lot that there are lots of challenges against rolling out still in the Western Balkans countries, clarity of ownership of land, the way of right on governmental public infrastructure is not clear yet. There are no clear regulated commercial agreements. How, for example, the electricity providers poles can be used for rolling out, just to name one example.
Yeah.
So all these regulatory and legislative
It relates well to what Katarina was saying. So one of the projects in progress, what Serbian government has been working on, is precisely aligning with the EU Gigabit Infrastructure Act, implementing it, and putting it in place
that speeds up big time.
in the Serbian legislation. What about Albania now? It's not been implemented yet, is it?
It's not yet. It's under the implementation stage, but unfortunately, it hasn't been inked yet, and therefore we still see daily challenges with this one. However, just to definitely credit the ministry, the government, they have just freshly also set up a broadband office, which is supposed to be a one-stop shop for permission grants, for speeding up the legislative questions of such supporting elements, but also the daily permission gathering process, which it will be a big support. So that's, I think, on the supply
Infrastructure mapping,
side.
would it deal with that?
Pardon?
Infrastructure mapping, would it deal with that as well, like the availability of suitable passive infrastructure, or general the extent of fiber infrastructure? It would be.
I think there needs to be more effort in that area than what I'm seeing today. So that is a very, very good point, Veronica. Even the digital infrastructure today is not well mapped in the country. That's why we are talking. Sometimes you hear from official sources of information 65% coverage of fiber and infrastructure in the country, while the reality is by far 90+. The discrepancy between maps, what is officially reported versus the reality, right? So
for that reason, I didn't even
agree.
try to bring in my introductory slide the numbers, because I know I cannot trust them.
Which one to trust, right?
Yes.
So I think everybody recognizes that this is the way forward, but there is more work to be done on easing the rollout. And at the same time, the demand side we also talked about, to create the demand from the businesses, from the customers, where I think Albania is doing super well with the e-Albania program, where basically over a very short period of time, the government has rolled out and mandated a governmental way of doing business with, a digital way of doing business with the government to every citizen, basically, and to every business. And it's paying back with radically increased, actually 95% penetration of governmental digital platforms in Albania, which is uniquely high, even compared to the European countries. So the demand side, I think, is there. The supply side needs to be processes simplified, fostered, so that you can roll out faster. And first and foremost, let me always go back, the environment that gives security and forecastability of the investment's return.
More predictability.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Mark, what's your view? You mentioned already some of the key challenges, and I promised I will come back to you on that, so shoot.
The key challenge, that's really also on a regional perspective, that's really hard to see. You know, we have to see really country by country. If I see, for example, in Bosnia, where there is is there someone from Bosnia here?
I am. I live in
I
Sarajevo.
live there. So, you know, in Bosnia, we have fiber connectivity or coverage around 5%, and we are talking about, you know, in Skopje, downtown, 74%. You know, in this range, you know, we have completely different challenges. So therefore, it's hard to say now that is, you know, the challenge. So therefore, we have to go country by country. But if we want to boost fiber, and we have to, and the colleagues already explained why, so we have to think a little bit about what are the drivers. And I think those things like attracting customers or helping consumers to take the step to order a fiber connectivity, that's really one thing. So to boost the demand side for private customers, for small and medium-sized companies, for companies as well. I think that's the tricky thing, you know, to boost the demand side. For sure, also in some of the countries and also in Greece, you know, there are very good contracts also between the operators, so wholesale commitments model, which really helps also if you are not allowed to build up 100% of the country, at least to cooperate with some of the competitors on very good contractual base, so that you can also have a payback for your investment. Because if we are talking, and it's, you know, it's a crowd here now, or people which are from the industry, we are talking about a payback of, I don't know, 15 to 20 years. And that's a crucial thing. You need, somehow conditions which allows it, and also regulatory steps are very important to ensure that commitment models could work. Another point is then, if we are talking about commitment models, on the other side is, we made in some of the adjacent markets a very good experience with the deregulation. For example, in Croatia, and they hate it if I say, come on, we are in the Balkans, but nevertheless, Croatia is part somehow of the region. And in Croatia, we made the very good experience that with a partially deregulation of the fiber market, we saw that all of the operators, not only Hrvatski Telekom, but also the others, our competitors, are investing more. And we have there an annual growth of investment of 8%. And only to give you a hint, if you're having more 10% of investment in digitization, which it would be, you are boosting the GDP of the country by 0.69%. I think that was the result of our studies.
Yes.
And that's an amazing effect. So also this attract the investment is a point, and then removing complexity also in this process. For example, also in another adjacent, no, not in another, in an adjacent market in Croatia, we have a problem of very high right-of-way fees we are paying to the municipalities. I don't know whether
and
we
the
have
fees are applied arbitrary in the sense that you are a publicly owned company, then you do not pay any fees. But if you're a privately owned company, as the Croatian Telecom, then you pay quite high fees. I'm well familiar with the Croatian
really
situation.
Tricky. And when you can only invest the euro once, you can spend it for fees, or you can invest it in something which really boosts the economy and the society. So therefore, that's also one of the key driver. And really, this common regional approach, that is something we should also learn from the mistakes we did in the European Union. As telecommunication is not a single market, we have now the chance to start in the Western Balkans when we are talking about common regional market, also for have a digital common regional market. So.
Yeah. Pranvera, I think you have answers, at least to some of the issues raised by panelists, in terms of RCC role in tackling some of those challenges. We heard rights of way, maybe the lack of trust in the networks.
Okay. Indeed, what has been now discussed here, it triggers a lot of reflections. I think that there is no right and wrong approach in addressing digitalization, but there is a very balanced approach between demand, supply, and benefits. And I think, as I said, for everyone there is a role to play. So while the operators try to create the supply, the government needs to set the standards so the quality of services responding to the citizens, and also could give the return to the investment for the operators, and brings this balanced thinking of whether it is worth investing. In particular, having in mind that in the Western Balkans, the depopulation, even though this is not a matter of discussion today, but people are more and more going to live and work in EU, which means that the rural area in the Western Balkans is increasing. So we already have quite, let's say, a huge rural area. But this is increasing, and the number of citizens living, households
migrating
living
to cities
in a
or even out of the
territory
country
is decreasing, which makes for the operators and whomever wants to invest less logical to invest, because there is no
even less
interest
attractive
to invest there. However, what we're trying to do in the common regional market, and coming back to some of the responses that we can bring to the region, by bringing together digital transformation ambitions, challenges of the Western Balkans. While we know, for instance, that citizens in the Western Balkans use internet at least 2 to 3 hours daily, which requires a very high speed of internet, and which requires a lot of investments. And according to the common regional market, we have already put the ambition that by 2028, I hope this will be managed, but it's good to have good ambitions, 70% of the household will be covered by fixed, very high capacity networks in each economy, while 80% of the population, a populated area, will be covered with 5G signal in each economy in the main regional corridors. Of course, this is mainly at each economy, let's say, responsibility and task to do investments. But what we try to do in the region is to bring what is best and what is working best in terms of policy, in terms of regulatory approaches, so that the economies peer-to-peer learn from each other. Second, we're trying to address those barriers that would increase the incentives of the operators, but not only, the industry at large, to invest more. We have managed, for instance, through the advisory and coordination group that we have established, that I mentioned before, that brings together the Western Balkan public institution, telecom operators, RCC, Commission, and other institutions, discussing on barriers. And for the first time, a very specific request from the operators is now part of the Common Regional Market Action Plan, so permit granting procedure. And we are doing that closely with the operators and with the industry at large. So we have started already a process in which we are mapping, listening from the governments, but also from the operators, what doesn't work, what could be made. Of course, there is no solution fits for all, and this has to be also seen in compliance with gigabit infrastructure. And all the economies are now very, let's say, ambitiously working in the alignment process. Serbia, for instance, put that as a deadline for this year. Albania is very much working on that. North Macedonia started. So all the economies of the Western Balkans started already the process to align. But let's not forget, gigabit infrastructure is very recent in EU as well. And one of the things that we in the Western Balkans have learned is that no matter how fast we walk or run, EU member states are maybe running faster than us. So this means that this is a moving target. You cannot always reach the deadlines of the alignment, and then having in mind all the ambitions to be part of EU, Albania 2030, Montenegro 2028. So there are high ambitions there. And while doing that, we invest in increasing the capacities of the institutions in the Western Balkans, jointly with Commission. We are very strongly supported by European Commission in that. Through dedicated workshops, dedicated trainings on the new regulations, on the best practices. And what we managed, and I know that Mark would immediately say, okay, but tell me what is the implementation rate of this? What we did, for instance, with the connectivity toolbox of EU, whatever was the best practice for the EU member states, we put it as a mandatory requirement and policy for the Western Balkans in the roadmap for lowering the roaming charges, even though we called it like that, but the roadmap as such was a combination of roaming and business environment. So it was a win-win process. So I would conclude by saying what brings the region together is learning from mistakes of each other, getting what is best, and applying something at a larger scale that only within one single economy.
Thank you, Prantera. On that note, Kostas, if we look at Greece, what could be learned from Greek mistakes by countries in the region? Maybe it's a difficult question.
No mistakes.
I prefer to be on the positive note. Let me give you very briefly, some background on this. Greece, in the end of 2016, introduced a regulatory framework. It was market analysis for market 3A by that time, that incentivized the deployment of next generation access networks with emphasis on vectoring, VDSL. Of course, there was the possibility to configure street cabinets as FTTH, but at that point, our operators gave emphasis and priority to the deployment of VDSL vectoring. Maybe it was a good step-by-step approach to reach first 100 megabits per second and then continue to fiber. Since the beginning of 2018, fiber was zero coverage in Greece. We tried to introduce a regulatory framework that would promote the deployment of FTTH in Greece. And
in other way, shifting focus from copper to fiber.
Yeah, and maybe we are still second from the last in European Union 27 coverage, 40%.
But you're the fastest growing, though.
But we are the fastest growing. 26% annual growth, September 23, September 24, and maybe only below Serbia. And in take-up, even higher, something like 85% increase in subscribers. But we had to address this through the regulatory framework. And as I said, we need to incentivize investments, we need to address the demand side. So what we tried to do, our latest market analysis for Market 1 that was introduced in 23, gave emphasis, of course, to physical infrastructure access. This has to do with optimizing network deployment costs, the engineering part.
Which is indeed a common problem across the region, as we heard.
This is very important. We introduced obligation for reference offer for physical infrastructure access, so we gave a lot of emphasis there. But as regards the regulatory environment, we tried to, let's say, adopt an approach to relax regulation so that the new technology is deployed faster, and then as long as from the point that we reach specific targets, then regulation will return.
To focus more, to allow more market-driven deployment.
Yeah, so for example, we removed the obligation of the incumbent to pass FTTH tariffs through economic replicability.
Yes, more flexible regulation.
Penetration of 30%. We have provisions that wholesale regulated prices will be removed when we achieve when FTTH infrastructure is deployed by alternative operators. So from some point, we will monitor, and if we have deployments by alternative operators, then we can remove also the wholesale regulated prices. Mark mentioned about
the Croatian example, where indeed
volume discount scheme. This is also very important. So in cases one operator cannot deploy in specific area, volume discount agreements can be really useful. And we do not allow deployment of VDSL vectoring in areas where we have investment plans by the operators.
To prevent
this is to avoid
to prevent the issue that we discussed is present in other countries.
We do not want to allow legacy technology competing with investments. And of course, we have different public subsidies framework.
Which we mentioned. I thank you so much. I'm sure you, the colleagues on this panel, they would be very interested to learn more from your experiences, which is certainly applicable on many aspects, including, for example, the regulation of passive infrastructure, which I heard from Balázs is an important issue in Albania. The time is up. I would like to thank my panelists very much. And I hope this discussion, this regional perspective that FTTH Council will continue bringing up the regions into more spotlight, as we did today with this very specific region. And I'd like to say a very big thank you to our distinguished panelists for sharing your views, for sharing your experiences.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.